that Hargreaves like puts her on a suppressant pill and treats her like trash.
That's what I'm gonna do to my kids. I'm gonna put them on suppressant pills and treat them like.
I'm pretty sure, Dallas, if you had a child that had superpowers, you would just like lose your mind.
I would. I'd be the happiest man to ever live. I definitely love them more than their siblings. I'm not even gonna lie. What is up, everybody? Welcome to DTR Comics Podcast. This is either the first or second video version of our podcast because our good friend and host T over there is a master with YouTube. He's started up his own YouTube channel, which is super rad, and he wanted to help bring us into the 21st century here on DTR Comics.
Master is a strong phrase. More like learner. I'm a Padawan, and so I'll just like take all the things and do them all.
Perfect. But I'm Dallas. I am your audio guru and the one that writes up the tweets. My co-hosts are...
I'm T. I mean, I feel like saying that like YouTube is my job is suddenly like odd, but you started off on this job thing, and I'm like, I haven't posted anything yet. So I'm not going to claim that as my job yet. So really, I think that my job is to dislike the comics that JP and Dallas like, so we have more of a lively discussion.
Oh boy.
Tell me I'm wrong.
The in-house contrarian.
Well, if that's your job, I don't know what mine is. I just come along for the ride, enjoy the comics.
To bring joy.
It's always optimistic with JP on board.
It is, except for when we read Crowded. That was the only time I think I've ever had JP be like, I hated something.
That's true. That was fun, though.
It was. See, that was when JP was a contrarian. When have I been the contrarian in the podcast? What didn't I like?
I don't know. I feel like you fangirl over every comic we read, and you're just like so happy that we're doing it.
Yeah, it's because like good comics. I mean, we could do an episode where you just pick like a really crappy like '90s comic and we just drag it through the mud. I don't know if that'd be as fun though. I like being excited about
that'd be fun. Have you ever heard of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Oh yeah,
where they pick like the really awful movies. Maybe we should do that with comics, you know? Just like go through and read them and just like make jokes the whole time. That'd be fun, but hard technologically. Something
to float around in our brain. JP, do you want to introduce the book we're reading today? It was your pick.
Okay. I was really excited about this. It's called Academy, and I'd actually watched the TV series. I think made an original for it. I watched it a couple of years ago, and I saw the comic for it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I remember I really liked that show. So the Umbrella Academy, and I didn't realize when I was reading the introduction, it's by Gerard Way, and he is it the lead singer or? Well, he's part of the My Chemical Romance, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, he's the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. Right.
The introduction it kind of talks about that and how Gerard Way meets Grant Morrison, and they work together on this comic together, and it was pretty cool. Who'd have thought that somebody in a punk rock band was also, creating comics? I thought that was pretty cool.
That just reminds me of Ezra Koenig from Vampire Weekend. How he's like, what if I make an anime? And we're all like, okay.
Very similar.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you're familiar at all with My Chemical Romance, then you get a lot of those vibes in this comic, which is really cool. I remember watching the show. I just really loved one of the characters, Klaus. I don't know if he really goes by that much in the comic. I think he's number 6 or something. Okay, yeah, sorry. We'll get into that. But there's the main characters are these kids with superhero powers that are adopted by this rich billionaire, smart guy, and he just forms his own super. Sorry, what was that?
I said alien question mark?
Alien question mark, yeah. It didn't go into that at all in the TV show. But yeah, they form this weird kid superhero team, and they've all got really interesting powers.
It is so fun. I feel like this is super pulpy. It's super 1920s steampunk superhero, but like you can tell it's written by My Chemical Romance. Like there's a twinge of punk that's like just syringed right into the veins of this steampunk pulpy universe, and it's so fun.
So confession time, I didn't love this one.
Oh boy.
I mean, it was like I started off the podcast saying it's my job, but yeah, it didn't quite do it for me. Like there were a lot of things about it that I did love, like the style, like that first scene where the kids show up and they're like, "We're here to fight the Eiffel Tower." I'm like, "Yes, this is what I need." But then it didn't quite deliver on that for me.
I did think it was interesting. I guess just hopping right into it, I liked the stuff in the past better, and I didn't as much like the Watchmen-esque deconstruction of that later, you know? Like, it was a little bit like It Chapter 1 versus It Chapter 2, where It Chapter 1, you're like, dang, this is really fun. Look at all these kids fighting this evil clown. This is a darn good movie. And then number 2, you're like, man, look at all these 40-year-olds fighting this clown. And depression, question mark? Oh, man, this is less good. I did get that a little bit from this, where I found myself much more interested in the flashbacks than like a modern day. If that makes
Okay.
So, can we say this is going to be a non-spoiler free episode because it's just short? I don't really know how to talk about it without getting into
Spoilers.
like I'm telling you, you could probably like pause this, get on Comixology, create an account, read the whole thing, and then come back to this before we would have finished it. So, well, that may be an exaggeration. I read fast.
But it is a short read. I don't know. I think that's actually one of the things I really liked about the comic, since the TV show, like I don't know. You could binge it for sure, but like I took my time going through it. But the comic was like really short compared to the TV show, I guess.
And see, that's one of the funny things because I feel like if it had been 12 issues, I would have liked it more. Because
Okay. Interesting.
I feel like you had like the 7 kids who were adopted. You had their monkey butler, their crazy father, their fake robot mom, and it was like a pretty solid cast. But I feel like we didn't get enough time with each of them. Then plus because it's like here they all are as kids, and then it jumps to here they all are as adults, and plus sometimes they go by numbers, and other times they go by names, and so it was really hard for me to place like who was who, so I didn't feel like I was able to really latch on to any character except number 1.
See, I would definitely that. I think that there wasn't enough autonomy for the characters, and there could have been more time spent to have me more emotionally invested in any of them other than number 1 and number 7, you know?
Yeah.
Like everybody just fell in line into the background, and I found myself wanting to know more about them as characters. And maybe that comes from the other volumes, because there are more volumes of this series. But I just thought, like, as the opening volume, I should leave it knowing all of the characters pretty well, you know?
But I mean, that's hard to do when there's like 7 of them.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I've got a very different experience from you guys because I watched the entire show and I've got like attachments to all these different characters. I get so much. I've already got so much backstory on each of them, and so like I've got my favorites. I like know so much more about them, I guess, at least from the show version of it, that like watching it all play out in this, like I could see like, okay, yeah, that's totally something she'd do for him or whatever, and like, yeah, wow, that's interesting. You guys need to go watch the show now. You'll get like, I think each of the most episodes kind of focus on one of the different characters, and so you get a lot of like flashbacks on them as a kid and how they play out as an adult. Like number 6, what's he called in the comic? But yeah, T's right. Like they each have a number, they each have their actual name, and they each have their superhero name. So it does get a little bit confusing.
Number 6 is the one that's like MIA, right?
Oh wait, no. So it'd be number 5. So 6 is MIA. He's the tentacle guy. 5, he's like like the one with the psychic powers or whatever.
Seance.
So yeah. So Seance, his name is Klaus. I remember that much from the show. He was my favorite. He was like
He's kind of my favorite too. He's like one of the few that stood out to me. But I also like didn't really know he existed until the final issue.
See, I really like that model that JP described where they spent like an episode on each character. that was almost my recommendation for this. Like, don't change the story beats at all. Just have a different character narrating it and make it a 7-issue thing. Or no, it's a 6-issue thing because 6 is missing. Like, I feel like that could have been a game changer for me in understanding who these characters are and caring about them.
Well, and see, that's my thing. When I say that I didn't like it, the fact of the matter was there were parts of it that I really loved, and I just feel like I wasn't able to enjoy it to its full potential. So it was kind of more sad to me. Not that I was just like, this is a waste of time. It was boring, but it was just kind of like, I wish that I could have like understood the world more, but it jumped around a little bit too much for me. Like, I also loved, is it number 3 who travels through time?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Because, all right, let's go through the characters really quick. Let's see, where can we find
Let's have JP go through the characters really quick for those of us who are still confused having read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so number 1, do one of you guys want to pull up their actual names or superhero names? So, and I'll just go kind of through the numbers and talk about them. So number 1, so he's the leader of the team. So number 1, he's the leader of the team. As a kid, he was just really, he's hands-on. He leads the team. He kind of helps organize things and directs people as they go. And at least here he gets the nickname of Space Boy because he ends up getting sent to the moon for a secret mission. It kind of goes a little bit more into that on the show, I guess. Boy, I'm going to have a hard time kind of, I guess, separating the show and the comic, maybe. But
was Gerard Way involved in the show, like in fleshing out the story details, or did somebody else do it?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. I think I got the show recommendation off of a friend, and so I didn't look too much into the creating of it. I'd never heard of the Umbrella Academy. Just started watching it and enjoyed it. But yeah, he's a bit. So number 1's more serious. He's the leader. He directs people. And he has he has different relationships with the other kids. And so all 7 of them were kind of raised together, but they also are not like actual siblings. They were just adopted. And so like him and number 2, I believe, the Kraken, they fight like a lot. They don't get along. So number 2, he's got like knife throwing powers. Number 1, he's got kind of super strength. Number 2,
and can they all fly?
He can also hold his breath indefinitely. Is the Kraken's power?
Okay.
So he's good at knives, but he can. I'm reading it off the Wikipedia. See,
okay.
I'm on Wikipedia to learn this crap. I wanted to know it from the comic.
I don't know. I had more information like having watched the show, but yeah. It is kind of a problem when you have to go back and read the wiki to actually learn about what was going on.
Well, it's just because, like, the comic is really well laid out and the story is engaging, so it moves you through quickly. And so you don't really take a lot of time on the things that you need to. But anyway, continue, JP.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like character and world were sacrificed for the sake of plot. And that's not necessarily a negative. That's just something that, like, I feel remiss about,
Dallas, I feel like I've turned you against this so quickly.
I have good things to say as well.
Yeah, I'll agree that like if they'd fleshed it out, it'd be a lot better. But I still enjoy like in contrast to the show, like it was fun to see how it just like how zany and I don't know. It was short but really like sweet, I guess. Number 2, he's got the knife powers, can hold his breath indefinitely. He's got a lot kind of a wants to pick a fight kind of character type. And so he'll say, yeah, he's pretty brash and will say a lot of harsh things even to like the people around him. And he works kind of with it. Yeah, it doesn't go into this in the comic either, but like he works kind of doing his own vigilante stuff throughout kind of his adult life. Number the time traveling boy. So he kind of time travels away. So he doesn't start off time traveling.
He runs away from home into the future because he doesn't
right.
want to.
He's number 5, isn't he?
I think he's number. Is he 5?
Yeah, he's 5. Number 3 is the rumor, the girl that.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, sorry. I was looking at him out of order. I'm just looking at some of the scenes in the back. So 3 is rumor.
Uh-huh.
Well, she can like say I heard this or that, and then it becomes true. Basically, like she can say a rumor and it becomes an actual thing. I think the first one it shows in the comic is like, I heard a rumor that they're like serving free food and like giving away paintings at what's that famous museum in Paris? At the Louvre. And so like everybody runs towards that. What was that?
See, I didn't pick up that that was actually going to happen. Like, I was like, oh, that's funny. But like, I didn't pick up that that was a power. That's interesting.
Yeah, her power is like she can make anything happen by like spreading it as a rumor. So number 4 is, you help me out with the numbers because I don't have them in order here.
Number 4 is seance.
Okay, number 4 is Sans. Klaus, he's my favorite, especially in the show. He's like a complete drug addict, like super emo. Like at least in the show, he's like completely gay. He's just like a super funny character, and he's just like mooching off of his family, buying drugs, and consuming that all the time. Like not a great role model, but like he has hilarious one-liners and a funny relationship with the rest of his family.
I think that was my favorite like panel from the whole comic, is they're coming together because like the end of the world is happening, and they're like, "Seance, how you doing?" And he's like, "I'm on so much speed." Wait, what does he says? He says, "I've been eating speed for the last 3 days, and every time I close my eyes, I see centipedes." Like, that's great. Like the world is about to end, and that's Seance.
Yeah, Seance just does his thing, but then like he always, then like in the end he comes in clutch, like helping everybody out. He's probably got the most potential with his powers out of anybody. And in the show, at least, it kind of goes into it more. He can like speak with the dead, and kind of has powers like with dead people.
He's like a full psychic. He's got a little bit of telekinesis and can commune with the dead.
Yeah. So that's 4. 5's the time traveler. So his power was actually teleportation. He could teleport like anywhere instantly, but then he learns how to like harness his power, and so like he can time travel. So as a kid, he doesn't like being told what to do or treated like his kid. So he jumps to the future, escapes his family, runs away from home, sees the end of the world, and then eventually makes it back to warn everybody of the end of the world coming.
Because he lived like in the post-apocalypse for like decades, doesn't he?
Right, like an entire lifetime, until he finally finds a way to travel back in time, but it reverts him back to being a kid. So it's like he's got a whole, it's like this 80-year-old man in a 12-year-old's body.
How old was he supposed to be in the show? Because in this, it was like he was like 60 and he was in a 10-year-old's body.
Yeah, something like that. 16 and 10-year-old body.
Because I also really liked his character. Like, that was also one of my favorite scenes, is when he's just in the diner with the monkey eating and like drinking coffee, and the people show up and they're like, "Are you this person?" And he's like, "Who's asking?" And then like it just shows this aftermath of he's just like totally destroyed these people, and you're like, "Oh, this little child is very powerful," and I liked his character actually.
Yeah, he was actually a lot more central in the show than he was here in the comic. And that stuff that happened there at the diner, like those guys were a huger part of the story as well. Like there's this whole time travel like investigation team that's after him. And so yeah, he's got a lot bigger role, I guess. But yeah, he's a really fun character because it's fun to see like this adult in a kid's body and how he acts. So 6 is the one that's like gone for everything. Like even in the show, he hardly plays a role. And I didn't get a whole lot out. I just know that he's got like tentacle powers. Like I don't know.
I'm reading right here. Basically, he possesses monsters from other dimensions under his skin. So like Cthulhu tentacles that come out of him, and it never goes into in the comic or the show. It never goes into how he ends up dying, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's dead for pretty much all of it,
which is a bummer because I love Lovecraftian horror, and it's fun that that's his power, and of course he's the one that ends up dying, but whatever.
Yeah. I think in this show, Seance, he talks to him a lot. He follows Seance around a lot, and so it doesn't kind of go into his powers a ton, but just as a character, they kind of talk a lot.
Okay.
And then number seven. He's got no powers.
That's what you think.
Yeah, she's just normal, and she plays the violin, and everybody's like, "Stay here, Seven." And she sort of hates everybody for it because they treat her like a nobody.
Yeah. But in reality, she's actually got the strongest powers of everybody, and that's kind of how she becomes the death machine, basically. At least in the show, it talks about how Dr. Hargreaves suppresses her power. That's why she's always taking those pills. And she actually has huge ability to just destroy. I think it's with resonating vibrations of sound, and that's why she uses the violin. And in the comic book, she just plays the violin, and this guy is split in half. And basically, she becomes the end of the world's doomsday machine,
which is nuts.
Yeah, because she was treated like a nobody the whole time, thinking she has no powers, but really it's because she had too much power and wouldn't be able to control it that Hargreaves puts her on a suppressant pill and treats her like trash. But that Hargreaves puts her on a suppressant pill and treats her like trash.
That's what I'm gonna do to my kids. I'm gonna put them on suppressant pills and treat them like.
I'm pretty sure, Dallas, if you had a child that had superpowers, you would just lose your mind.
I would. I'd be the happiest man to ever live. I definitely love them more than their siblings. I'm not even gonna lie.
Dallas is so it turns out I'm the professor.
Yeah, for real. I'm the monocle man. I really... Can we talk about the art a little bit in this? Thanks for the character recap, GP. That honestly helped me a lot to be able to keep them all straight in my head. I almost wish I had read that before I read the comic, so I could
right, yeah.
But
yeah, that helps me out a lot, kind of already having background on all the characters than reading in comic.
Maybe if you're gonna read it, go through the wiki and learn the characters a little bit.
I would on that. I don't know. I think the art was so pretty. I don't know if either of you two interacted at all with the Hellboy comics. But Mike Mignola has a very distinct sort of choppy, sharp lines. It's noir is the word that I would use to describe art style. And I feel that's very, very present here in the Umbrella Academy. And it made me really happy. I feel every character design is really distinct. There's this dark grittiness and these hard edges to all the characters. They almost seem Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Act with, especially moving into the future and their adult life, it seemed to fit the tone quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I really liked the art, honestly. It's simple and a little bit cartoony, but gritty, and it totally matches the tone. It was really super fun and stylized.
Even though I don't remember their names, all of the characters had a unique enough design and costuming that I never had to wonder who they were. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
While I bemoan it a little bit for not giving me the name, I was never confused about who was going on, and I think that's a real strength of the comic as well. It's not just a bunch of look-alike people with superpowers when it very easily could have been. And so I thought that was a really great strength of the art as well.
I mean, you've got a freaking chimp as a butler, and
I mean, what more could you want?
A tiny kid, a huge primate type man. Yeah, he's got all sorts of different looking characters.
A monkey body.
Does number one have the monkey body in the show?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, he like never takes off his shirt because like he's like covered in fur basically. Um, but like he's just huge, massive, and like super hairy arms.
Huh.
So, but I don't remember him having like primate-esque like feet and hands.
Ooh, can we talk about? I mean, spoilers here. Can we talk about the panel specifically when the white violin runs into the monkey butler?
That was so sad for me.
It
I liked the monkey butler.
Yeah, I don't
Can you tell me what page
remember
that's
him
on?
dying like that.
I don't have. Let me. I'm on page 120 of the digital reader.
Oh
I also
boy.
like that number 5 is just like fascinating, and he's kind of like looking at the monkey, like he's just sort of detached from everything that's going on. I think that's an interesting character moment.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because number 5, the time traveling kid, he comes back from the future and they're doing all these tests and they're like, "So we're worried that you might be," and he's like, "Insane? Of course you should be worried about that. I've been alone for so long and I've been traveling through time. There's like almost no chance that I would be sane." And it's interesting to like see that character play out and like know that. Okay, why do you think Vanya killed the monkey? I didn't quite understand Vanya's motivations, and I want to know what you guys thought. So Vanya is number 7. She gets their dad dies, and they're gonna have a big funeral for him. But then when they get back together, one of their old villains pops up and starts a big scene, and Vanya, theoretically no powers, goes to help. And number 2 is like, "What are you even doing here? You're a civilian. You're just gonna get hurt, and you're wasting all of our time and making it dangerous for everybody else." And so she leaves and then goes and becomes super powerful with these villains. And then she's like, "I'm going to murder my family. And then I'm going to destroy the earth." And I didn't quite get the motivations.
I feel like she was. I feel very much of this comic and the characterization in this comic are like kids that had to live under the shadow of like an abusive parent. You know what I mean? Like the monarch certainly isn't a great paradigm for a like for them to live around. You know, he's abusive. He puts them down. He gave them a number based on how useful they were to him. And I think Vanya is as number 7 as the one that's consistently shunted. And then when that's perpetuated by the group, I think she ends up just lashing out. You know, you can see how the abuse affected all of the other 5 kids and made them unique. And I think number 1's reaction to the abuse is a lot different than number 7's. But I think that Vanya's reaction kind of tracks. Like she wants to tear down this whole world that told her that she was useless. You know, I don't know that there is a lot of like higher thought to it other than a child's tantrum.
But then why the monkey butler? He was the only one that was nice to her. And she like specifically murdered him.
That's true. That's true. I did feel like it might just be shock value, honestly. Like I don't know that I fully understand what's going on with the monkey butler either.
I mean, it was definitely impactful enough that I'm still ticked about it.
Yeah.
I liked that monkey.
I feel like the comic book just kind of plays out that way more, where it's just more for the reaction. Kind of like at the very beginning, they beat the Eiffel Tower, and like as the Eiffel Tower, because it's a spaceship, is like blasting off, the mayor comes in. It's like, here you go, have the key to the city and ice cream for everyone. It's just like, you know, kind of just this weird, funny, zany reaction. And so, like, I don't think there's, at least in this, it doesn't go too into depth into like actual motivations, I guess, for Vanya. She was just sick of being like useless, like feeling like she was useless and not having any powers. And so she was just taking it out on everybody, I feel like, here in the comic. Not that it like made a whole lot of sense. I think it was just more for like here, we'll create a villain and this is an easy way to do it. But yeah, Pogo, at least I don't remember if
Pogo's
like
the
Vanya,
monkey.
right, yeah. So Pogo's the monkey butler. I don't know if she even like killed him in the TV show. That's why I think it was more just for reaction than for any actual storyline purpose. Because I don't remember that happening.
I mean, it definitely characterized them. It just surprised me.
Yeah. like this comic suffers a little bit from having like a fantastic idea, a really interesting world, but like you can kind of tell that this is the writer's first effort at telling a story in this fashion. You know what I mean?
I love how
And
JP's
it's
smirking
not
over here because we're just trashing his thing and he's trying to be positive.
Well,
no
I
like
mean,
I did. The thing is, like, I'm being really negative, but like, I did like it, you know. And I'm being critical of it because I did like it, and I think I could like it more than I liked it.
true, absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I appreciate it for what it is because, like, I mean, the guy, he's typically writing songs, not comics. So, like, I can tell this isn't like other normal comics. It's not super fleshed out. It's got a lot of fun, zany stuff in it, like just to get the instant reaction. But like, if you take in more time, I feel like it'd sink in deeper. But I don't know. I guess I don't take this one's for its depth. I guess I get that from the show that I was able to watch. The comic was just kind of fun to get the instant like reactions out of everything. Everything's just so like over the top.
I'm feeling like this interesting phenomenon where I texted you guys right after I finished this because I finished it. I couldn't sleep one night, so I read it all in like one sitting late at night. And I texted you, I was like, wow, that was one of the best things ever. Like, it was so fun. I really got, it's like a good song, honestly. Like, I feel like I got caught up in it and I was like, wow, that's so great. But now, like, a week later, I haven't interacted with it at all. I'm sitting down with it and I'm looking at it and all of the cracks are sticking out a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at the craft here and I'm like, okay, under a critical lens, I think that these things could be improved to have a better overall experience. But that's not to take away from how much fun I had with it the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of like why I brought that up at the beginning. It's like I wish it was longer. Like I want to know why Vanya did these things. I want to know more about Seance because I think he's cool. It's because I loved like some of the moments, like when in the final episode when they're playing this piece of music to destroy the world, and Seance shows up and he's like, "I brought a children's orchestra to play Stravinsky's Rite of Spring to stop you." I'm like, man, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and somebody saying they're gonna save the world with Stravinsky, that just like, I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of this whole comic because I know the Rite of Spring and it's this funky thing, but and so it's like it has these solid gold moments that I wish had more of a foundation supporting them. And so that's why I'm like, I if it had that one thing, I feel like I would have enjoyed it so much more. And so maybe I should just go watch the show. Like maybe that's the moral of the story. It's like, here's an 8-hour version of this thing, T. Stop your moaning and go get the longer version.
Yeah, I'd recommend the show.
That, I mean, as the local comic purist here, that it does bother me though when like comics are created to be IPs. You know what I mean? Like when I read a comic and I can tell like, oh, this wants to be picked up as a Netflix show. Oh, this wants to be a movie. This They realize their real money is in having a good idea and getting it out in a fashion where they can get picked up to be serialized in another format. Like I think comics should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. I think as someone that like loves the medium, I don't want the show to be the definitive take on this comic book. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Because like
I
I
can
mean, at the end
understand
of the day,
that.
I don't go to like the Transformers comic book isn't what I go to get my Transformers fix because like that's not what it was originally created for. That's just making more money off of a successful IP. And when those things end up being great, it's like, woo, that's awesome. And that's kind of how I feel with a lot of my comic book properties. Like when a comic book movie is great, I'm like, woo, that's awesome. But when it's not, I'm like, oh well, I still have the original source material. And I really don't like when that paradigm is flipped. When I feel like the comic is lackluster and taking shortcuts and is supplemented by the much better television version of it. Maybe that's just me being annoying, but that's how I feel.
Okay. Do you think that? I don't know. I feel like I don't think that this was created to become a show. Because, so like I said, Gerard Way, this was his first comic ever. And like he was writing it as he was like touring with his band. So like it kind of goes into that in the introduction. Like he was worried that Gerard wouldn't be able to like keep up with the deadlines of creating this comic, but like he ends up doing it, and yeah, I admit it's not like fleshed out like it could be, but it's the guy's first attempt at it, and I'm like impressed at how well it came out. I don't think that it was created specifically to become a show, but it ended up working out that way. I think that it helped me out a lot, kind of having watched the show to enjoy the comic as much. Like, I don't know. It's his first work. I kind of applaud him for what he was able to do on his first shot, even though, like, as far as like the critiquing of it, I know that it's missing a lot.
Well, I mean, like Extremity was Daniel Warren Johnson's first. You know, I don't know.
But
See,
some of us, Daniel Warren Johnson is our favorite comic artist, and there are a few standouts, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm being really negative. What good things do I want to say about this?
It has turned into the sad battle against JP.
Oh, JP's like, I had fun with.
No, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. I just like, I guess appreciate the newbies' take at it.
No, I see what you're saying. I had a lot of fun with it. You know, I read it and I had fun. Like these errors that we're talking about, they don't take away from the good time that I had with the book. It's just like with a lot of the other things, we can turn to the craft and say, this is why this is good. I feel like this, it's a little bit like this was really zany and crazy, and therefore I had a lot of fun with it. I liked the tone a lot. But then when I want to actually like talk about the craft, I feel like, again, those cracks show up. What do you think, T? I've been talking for a long time.
So here, I want to change the subject to actually get into some of the meat of this that I think was really interesting. In the moment where Vanya is trying to destroy the world, and Seance shows up with his Rite of Spring, which is fantastic. Love it. There's this moment where Seance pretends to be their dad, Monocle, to just like psych Vanya out. And it works, and it's really this kind of interesting moment where he's like, Vanya, you're failing at being a villain too. And it like really breaks her up. And I thought that was a really, really fascinating thing where you're never like, the big bad evil guy, let's attack them psychologically. But it was really, really fascinating. Like, I liked that whole scene in general. And so I want to hear what you think of Vanya as a villain. Is she a victim? Is she a baby that's just throwing a tantrum? Does she need to learn to grow up?
No, I think she's reacting in a very reasonable way to how she was treated. You know what I mean? Like, I do think it's a tantrum, but like, I think tantrum carries like a negative connotation to it. I don't think she's a baby like needs to grow up and get past these feelings, you know, but like I probably wouldn't destroy the world with those feelings, you know? So it's like, dang, you were really, 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 really ground down to a pulp. And this is a somewhat reasonable response based on the information we've been given. But like she doesn't, it kind of seems like she's just reacting and she's being destructive like a child would rather than some conniving evil scientist. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think, JP?
Okay. Again, like I've got such a different perspective having watched the show, because like, so yeah, comic book version Vanya versus show Vanya. Comic book version Vanya, she's just like, she tends to lean a lot naturally to the evil of like revenge and destruction, and that's kind of her character, even though like, I don't know. In the show, like you get a lot more background on her. Like she has resentment towards her family. She also like genuinely cares for him. She becomes the villain because of another guy that's kind of the villain behind her. She's kind of cultured in her resentment towards her family, kind of like the violin guy, like of the opera, a little bit in the show. It goes a lot more into that. Like a guy becomes her boyfriend, who is basically that guy, like kind of cultures her against her family and against the world, and she is not as I guess I don't know, as in control of her ill will towards her family. I don't know. That's not a really good way to put it, but uh, she's like set up by the other characters to become the bad guy because of all the bad stuff that he helps her see about her family. In any case, like there's a lot more reason to the motivation of her becoming the bad guy, and even when she becomes the bad guy, it's not really intentional. She still doesn't have that.
Yeah, I think we lost you. Oh dear. He was coming to the head with his comment, and I had a question. Well, we can just stare at his frozen face.
I feel
Maybe he'll
bad.
pop back for a second.
Comic book part.
Yeah, well, see, and really, there are things that I love about it. Like this whole scene, like I even want to read some of this when Seance is pretending to be the father, and he's like, "I'm putting a stop to your tantrum," and Vanya's like, "Tantrum? You're calling this a tantrum? I'm about to end this world," and he's like, "No, you're not. You're losing. You're an utter disappointment as a child, an embarrassment as an adult. So you can play the violin. Big deal. You can't even destroy the world properly. Face it, Vanya. You're a failure." And she's sobbing at this point because she like feels that way, and he's actually playing on that. And I think that's so interesting because to me it's just like Vanya is just trying to feel powerful for once in her life and prove that she's worth something, but being able to destroy things isn't worthwhile, and she knows it. And so I really loved that moment. It was super cool for me.
Yeah. I feel like there really is a good heart at the center of this comic. You know, now that JP's gone, we can say nice things about the comic. I do feel like I feel for these characters. I'm happy to see them on screen, you know. I feel like Vanya is a more compelling villain than a lot of the villains of the month that appear in the big two comic books, you know. Like you asked earlier, like what's her motivation? Well, I feel like I can point a little bit like, oh, rotten childhood, doesn't have a place in this surrogate family that she's a part of, and therefore is reacting. And even from that section that you're reading, even in her reacting, the rest of the family's like, oh, what a joke, not even a real supervillain. So you're kind of like, oh, that's why Vanya is crazy. Because like she can't even do this right, you know? Welcome back, JP.
We've been saying nice things about the comics when you're gone, but now that you're here, then that can be your job again, and we'll go back to taking shots at it.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Because I
Yes,
can't hear
we can.
you. Sorry.
You're
Yeah,
good.
you just
We just
froze.
said some nice things for a couple minutes while you were gone. Now we can go back to playing devil's advocate and throwing rocks at your thing.
Okay, wait, I did want to hear the end of your thought, but I can't remember exactly where you were.
Oh, he left again. He doesn't want to add to it.
So
you feel like you would enjoy reading the rest of the volumes of this book because there are 3 volumes and we just read 1.
really,
Yeah.
I just don't even know what the other ones would be about, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I think they're somewhat like self-contained. I think
Okay.
they're like,
I'm back, I think. I'm sorry.
you're good. Do you want to finish your thought from earlier?
Yeah, I don't know. I cut out though.
That's okay. We don't remember either.
Okay. Anyways, I think my moral of the story there was watch the show. Kind of a lot more of like the reason why Vanya goes bad, but it's not intentional. Like it's kind of in the comic, and so it explains it a lot better, I guess.
I do think that she's an interesting villain, you know? I feel like
that's one thing. Like, I really like her as a villain in this because it is different.
yeah, I wish she would like be more of an overarching villain, you know? I feel like it is sad to see it solved at the end of 5 issues. There we go again. JP's
Right,
back.
yeah.
Things to say. I was just saying nice things about this comic book.
No, yeah. She's actually, I don't know. I wouldn't consider her the main villain in the show. She's kind of the puppet of the main villain, I feel like, at least.
Very interesting.
Right. Yeah. Like the guy, I guess you compare him to the guy with the orchestra, like he would probably be the main villain because he just manipulates Vanya into actually being like the weapon of destruction. but it's like his plan.
Okay. Well, I like that. Do you have any more questions or any more follow-up on what you were saying, T, before I hop into my next little tidbit?
No.
All right. So I do want to kind of touch on what I think I liked very best about this comic was the sort of golden age feel to it, where like the leader of their superhero group, he wasn't Superman, he wasn't a sci-fi superhero in that way. He was like, his head was attached to a gorilla's body, and he was like a space fighter, He was a lot more golden age pulp fun. And I think there's this habit in modern media to be like, look at this fun, nostalgic golden thing, hop forward to the present day. This is how like it's gritty now. You know what I mean? I almost wish the comic had just taken place back in the day with the kids. I guess this is something that came up in another comic recently that I was reading called Adventure Man, where they had this whole big thing again with like pulpy fun, steampunk heroes.
Oh, cute.
And it was like, oh, isn't that great? And then they like hop forward and it's like, and now it's the modern day and they're just remembering that. And the real story is going to take place up here. And I don't know, I feel like everybody is skipping past their Captain America, the First Avenger, to get right into their Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
A little bit, yeah.
Like, I like the old-timey, golden, good guys are good, they're kind of zany, it's all fun. And I feel like that aids itself really well to stories building off of that later. But sometimes I feel like everyone just, like, skips past it in a heartbeat to immediately get into like the trauma of the modern day. And like that doesn't speak to me quite as much.
Yeah. It is fun to have a hero story.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't need everything to I saw a thing recently, it was like every video game basically has two settings. Oh, I get it. It's a giant metaphor for depression. Or it's Nintendo. Sometimes like I don't need my art to be about how hard life is,
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want it to be good, fun escapism.
Well, and those have been some of our favorites on the podcast, like Superman Up in the Sky and like Murder Falcon, where it's just like a traditional good versus evil, and they do that really, really well, and it's just fantastic.
And they're just fun, like I feel like 2020 is enough of a dumpster fire as it is. Like I don't need to read about dumpster fires. Like I kind of like escapism, and so I think the Umbrella Academy really captured me when it was that, when it was really fun, pulpy. I love that the first panel is a wrestler like diving down to slam into the squid, like that's so fun to me. That's what really caught my eye. And I think when it leans into that, when like the bad guy's getting defeated by them, a children's orchestra playing music, like it speaks to me a little bit more than when the Kraken is like being an edgelord,
Yeah.
And that could just be where I'm at as a person right now. But so I think that's kind of where my feelings with the Umbrella Academy come from. I had so much fun with the parts that were fun, and I could do without the parts that weren't as fun.
Yeah, because I really did love those parts. There are a lot of really clever things.
Yeah, I think I think my biggest thing was, like you said, if they'd have fleshed out the comic more, like I would have enjoyed it even more. I enjoyed it enough as it is. Just that I had the show to kind of lean on getting that background information. But I guess I really appreciate like the potential that it all had, and I enjoyed it for what it is, I guess.
JP came in so happy, and now he's leaving. He's like, I guess it was fine, whatever.
No, I really liked it. Like I agree that there's some parts in where it's, and I think it can definitely be improved upon. But I really enjoyed it. I know it can be better, but I enjoyed it as it was. And also, I just like. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, JP, you've got to call Gerard Way and say we need like a a Peter Jackson-esque extended edition director's cut of the first volume of Umbrella Academy.
You should email.
I watched the show. I liked it as it was, and then I started reading it and found out it was like written by Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, and I just like fangirled over that. I'm like, oh my gosh, he made a comic? What the heck? I thought it was like the coolest thing. I don't know, because like I love his music. Fantastic. I'm a huge My Chemical Romance fan, and then see that in the comic, and I just think it's so fun and zany. And yeah, it's not the best comic I've ever written, but I don't know. I guess it has like bonus points because it's written by somebody who's not like a comic book writer. He's like a performer and a singer.
That's fair. I mean, me and T's favorite comic book writer was a CIA agent, so maybe the key is to just do this as a secondary hobby, you know? That's how you'd be good at it.
Maybe.
It's like I just feel like whatever it is, you just need to like be a little bit of an emo first, and then you're probably good. Maybe that's why they're all like depressing things in the end, you know?
Yeah, have a big sad to work through with your comic. What would we rate this bad boy, or do we have any final comments before we wrap up?
I don't think I have anything else. I guess I will go first. I feel like this comic is the dichotomy, but there were reasons that I loved it a lot, and other reasons that I was kind of like, it's average. So I think in the end it gets like a 5, but there were some great moments.
I honestly am in the exact same spot where I'm like, when it was good, it was great, and when it wasn't, like it wasn't really, and so I honestly probably give it like a 6 for the reasons that you're saying. Steve.
Jeez. Well, I'm giving it a 7 because I don't know. I really liked it. I know that it was missing a lot. I know that it could be better, but I think it deserves at least a 7. But that's me, I guess. I might be partially biased. I'm definitely biased.
You can fight for your thing that you love. That's why we have multiple people on. So it's not just like Dallas by himself being like, I like comics. Because I mean, that's what he does the rest of his day anyway. So, you know, we're just trying to make it a little bit more diverse here.
Yeah, welcome to my end of things, JP. I'm usually the one that's like, take this thing I love, and everyone's like, this kind of sucked, and I'm like, okay, all right. So welcome to my world. You're gonna do this exact same thing to me next week on my pick when I'm like, hey, read this thing that's a culmination of like 60 years of Marvel knowledge, and there are gonna be all these Easter eggs that you guys don't know, and you'll be like, I mean, it was fine, but I really felt like I was hopping in at the finale or something, and I'm like, and you're like, kind of sucked. And I'll be like, you guys kind of suck. And then I'll log off early. So.
Well, I guess, yeah, I'll give it a 7. But also with that, I watched the show along with reading the comic. It would definitely be rated lower if I'd only read the comic. But yeah, I'd almost rate it higher if it's a combination of that and the show. But because it's just a comic, I'll still give it a 7.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
Sounds good.
Cool. Didn't they just release the second season of Umbrella Academy?
Actually, I think it was announced. I haven't started watching it yet.
I'm pretty sure it came out. So, and I heard it was good.
There we go. Yeah.
Look at that, JP. You can make us read volume 2 after you've watched season 2, and we'll just take a dump all over again.
Okay.
Round 2.
Or
It'll be like
how about you guys watch the whole thing?
Nope.
Read the second part of it, and I'll just read just the comic first, and that way I can have a taste of what you guys did.
Nope, that's not what I want to do. I want to be the contrarian. I'm sick of liking things. I want to be on T's side.
Fine.
The funny thing is, I'm usually such an optimist. Like, when did I become the cynic of the podcast?
I don't know. It's been an interesting character arc for sure. We must be approaching a season finale.
No, you know what I think was the turning point? Like, my fall from grace is when I was like, I don't know that I love Spider-Man Blue. And you both are like, oh, and I was just like, I don't know that I've recovered from that one.
You haven't. I don't think I'll ever forgive you for not loving Spider-Man Blue.
And then you shamed me for not crying at Essex County.
Uh-huh.
So, anyway. Thanks for listening. This has been DTR Comics. You can find us. Dallas, what's our Twitter again?
It's Comics DTR.
And,
you know.
I imagine the YouTube will be DTR Comics. It'll be made this week, so we'll find out, and we'll have that next time. And so you'll be able to follow us on a couple different spots.
Perfecto, everybody. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.